Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, uncovering the secrets and stories that have shaped our world. Today, we find ourselves in the midst of a pivotal moment in modern history, as we delve into the complex and fascinating tale of the Tet Offensive. This pivotal event, which took place in 1968, was a turning point in the Vietnam War, a conflict that would come to define a generation and leave an indelible mark on the world. As we begin our exploration of the Tet Offensive, let us first set the stage, transporting ourselves to the tumultuous landscape of 1960s Vietnam. It is a country ravaged by war, where the communist forces of North Vietnam, led by the enigmatic Ho Chi Minh, sought to reunify the nation under their rule, while the government of South Vietnam, backed by the United States, fought to maintain its independence. The year is 1967, and the seeds of the Tet Offensive are being sown in the ancient city of Hanoi, where General Vong Nguyen Giap, the brilliant and cunning North Vietnamese military strategist, is outlining a plan for a general uprising that would combine guerrilla warfare with conventional military attacks. In the sweltering heat of a Hanoi summer, General Giap convenes a series of secret meetings with his top generals, including Tran Du, the charismatic leader of the Viet Cong, and Le Duc Tho, the North Vietnamese politician, who would later play a key role in the Paris Peace Accords. Together, they pore over maps of South Vietnam, identifying vulnerabilities in the American and South Vietnamese defenses, and plotting a campaign that would strike at the very heart of the enemy's strongholds. As we explore the historical context of the Tet Offensive, it becomes clear that this was not simply a military campaign, but a sophisticated psychological operation designed to influence public opinion and shape the course of the war. The North Vietnamese leadership understood that the key to success lay not only on the battlefield, but also in the realm of propaganda and perception. They had been secretly infiltrating urban areas, establishing hidden cells and stockpiling supplies, all in preparation for a coordinated assault on the major cities of South Vietnam. In the months leading up to the offensive, the NVA-NVC had launched a series of smaller attacks and probes, designed to test the defenses of the American and South Vietnamese forces. On November 22, 1967, a group of Viet Cong guerrillas attacked the American airbase at Bien Hoa, just outside of Saigon, killing several American servicemen and destroying a number of aircraft. This attack was followed by a series of smaller skirmishes and battles, all of which served to distract the American and South Vietnamese forces from the true intentions of the North Vietnamese. As we delve deeper into the origins of the Tet Offensive, we find ourselves in the midst of a complex web of intrigue and deception, where spies and saboteurs played a crucial role in preparing the ground for the upcoming offensive. In the cities of Saigon, Hue, and Da Nang, Viet Cong agents had been secretly gathering intelligence, mapping out the defenses of the American and South Vietnamese forces, and waiting for the signal to launch their attacks. As we conclude our examination of the origins of the Tet Offensive, we find ourselves on the cusp of a momentous event, one that would change the course of history and leave an indelible mark on the world. Join me, dear listeners, as we embark on a journey through the most intense and dramatic period of the Tet Offensive, a time of great upheaval and transformation, which would forever alter the landscape of Vietnam and the world beyond. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, as we continue our journey through the complex and fascinating tale of the Tet Offensive. As the clock struck midnight on January 30th, 1968, the Tet Offensive began in earnest, with coordinated attacks launched against major cities and towns across South Vietnam. The North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong had chosen the Lunar New Year, or Tet, as the perfect moment to strike, knowing that many American and South Vietnamese soldiers would be on leave, and that the holiday would provide a convenient cover for their operations. In Saigon, the capital city of South Vietnam, a group of 19 Viet Cong sappers launched a daring attack on the American embassy, blasting their way through the walls and engaging in a fierce firefight with the embassy's Marine Guards. Although the attack was ultimately repelled, it marked a dramatic turning point in the war, as it brought the conflict to the very doorstep of the American diplomatic mission. Meanwhile, in the city of Hue, a combined force of North Vietnamese Army and Viet Cong troops launched a massive assault on the imperial city, capturing key landmarks such as the Citadel and the Imperial Palace. The battle for Hue would rage on for nearly a month, with American and South Vietnamese forces fighting to retake the city from the communist invaders. As the Tet Offensive spread across South Vietnam, it became clear that this was not simply a military campaign, but a sophisticated psychological operation designed to influence public opinion and shape the course of the war. The North Vietnamese leadership had carefully planned the offensive to coincide with the Tet holiday, knowing that the attacks would receive maximum media coverage and would have a profound impact on the American public. In the United States, the Tet Offensive sparked widespread protests and demonstrations against the war, as Americans began to question the true nature of the conflict and the likelihood of a swift victory. The offensive also marked a turning point in the media's coverage of the war, with journalists such as Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow providing first-hand accounts of the fighting and challenging the official narrative of the American government. As we explore the key battles and events of the Tet Offensive, it becomes clear that this was a moment of great upheaval and transformation, not just for Vietnam, but for the world beyond. The offensive marked a shift in the balance of power between the United States and North Vietnam, as the communist forces demonstrated their ability to launch sophisticated and coordinated attacks against American and South Vietnamese targets. In the aftermath of the Tet Offensive, the American government began to reassess its strategy in Vietnam, with President Lyndon B. Johnson announcing a halt to the bombing campaign against North Vietnam and initiating secret peace talks with the communist leadership. The offensive had also marked a turning point in the career of General William Westmoreland, the commander of American forces in Vietnam, who would soon be replaced by General Crichton Abrams. As we conclude our examination of the Tet Offensive, we find ourselves at a crossroads in history, where the course of the war and the fate of Vietnam hung in the balance. Join me, dear listeners, as we reflect on the significance of the Tet Offensive and its enduring influence on American foreign policy and international relations. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, as we conclude our journey through the complex and fascinating tale of the Tet Offensive. As the Tet Offensive drew to a close, it became clear that the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong had suffered significant losses, with estimates suggesting that between 30,000 to 50,000 communist soldiers had been killed or wounded. Despite these losses, the offensive had achieved its strategic objective of undermining the American public's confidence in the war effort. The attacks had also exposed the weaknesses of the South Vietnamese military and had highlighted the need for a more effective counterinsurgency strategy. In the months that followed, the American government began to implement a new approach to the war, one that emphasized pacification and Vietnamization. This involved training and equipping the South Vietnamese military to take on a greater role in the fighting, while also implementing a range of social and economic programs aimed at winning the hearts and minds of the local population. One notable example of this new approach was the Phoenix Program, a CIA-led initiative aimed at identifying and neutralizing Viet Cong cadres and sympathizers. The program used a combination of intelligence gathering, propaganda, and targeted assassinations to disrupt the communist insurgency and undermine its support base. Although the program was criticized for its heavy-handed tactics and alleged human rights abuses, it is estimated that it resulted in the deaths or capture of over 60,000 Viet Cong operatives. As the war dragged on, the Tet Offensive became a turning point in American public opinion, with growing numbers of people questioning the wisdom of continued involvement in Vietnam. The anti-war movement gained momentum, with protests and demonstrations taking place across the United States. In March 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson announced that he would not seek re-election, citing the divisions and unrest caused by the war. The Tet Offensive also had a profound impact on American foreign policy, leading to a reappraisal of the country's role in international affairs. The event marked a shift away from the confident assertiveness of the early Cold War era towards a more nuanced and cautious approach to global politics. In the words of Henry Kissinger, the future Secretary of State, the Tet Offensive was a wake-up call for America, a reminder that military power alone is not enough to achieve our objectives in the world. Today, the legacy of the Tet Offensive can be seen in the continued debates over American foreign policy and the use of military force. The event serves as a reminder of the complexities and uncertainties of modern warfare, and the need for careful consideration and planning before committing troops to combat. As we reflect on the significance of the Tet Offensive, we are reminded that history is not just a series of events, but a complex web of causes and consequences. The Tet Offensive was a pivotal moment in modern history, one that continues to shape our understanding of the world and our place within it. As the American historian Stanley Carno once noted, the Tet Offensive was a defining moment in the Vietnam War, a moment that changed the course of history and left an indelible mark on the American psyche. In conclusion, the Tet Offensive was a complex and multifaceted event that had far-reaching consequences for Vietnam, the United States, and the world beyond. As we continue to navigate the complexities of modern international relations, it is essential that we remember the lessons of this pivotal moment in history and strive to apply them to our own times. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the story of the Tet Offensive. I hope that you have gained a deeper understanding of this significant event and its enduring impact on our world today. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.